And much of the city's critical infrastructure is close to the coast, LAX, Hyperion, Scattergood, and of course, the Port of Los Angeles, which is really the economic engine for the city and for the region. So understanding the impact of climate change on our critical infrastructure, the impact of sea level rise, the impact of ocean acidification, and then the impact on our populations of more hot days like today, more frequent heat waves like we're experiencing right now. And actually UCLA did some work for us a couple of years ago looking at the scaling down the climate models to look at mean summer temperatures in not just the LA basin, but in the LA region, and the impact that will have on our critical infrastructure and the impact that that's going to have on everyone who lives here. So there's a lot of reasons locally to be worried about the impacts of climate change, and a lot more that we need to understand about how we address those through building more resiliency and adapting to them, as well as reducing our greenhouse gas emissions, which the city has made a major commitment to, and continue to see those greenhouse gas emission levels from the city itself decline.
I guess what keeps me awake at night is wondering whether or not as a society we have the courage and the ability to be quick enough to deal with the changes that are coming at us. We've got so much wealth and we have so much talent, but deploying that in a way to address the changes and not be completely reactive to them. And I think we're going to be tested if El Nino comes in the way that it is being forecast. We're going to have, there's work that can be done before the storms to minimize damage. There's work that then can be done after the storm to better deal with making sure that when it happens again, we're better prepared. So I'm hoping, and I remain hopeful, that we as a community in the LA Basin, in California, in the United States, have the resilience within ourselves to deal with these changes that are coming at us, and that we're going to be smart in the way that we do it.
Really have anything much to add to all of the brilliant comments and ways of thinking that we've heard. My question basically, and what I guess I think about a lot at night, is what if the drought is the new normal and climate change is creating this new normal? How do we respond to that? And what kind of planning can we do, both short term and long term? And do we need to have a different framework for how we do things? Because we can't do things in the same way we've been used to doing them if our normal is changing.
I have a bunch of note cards, which I'm going to ask Nikki and Marina to distribute. If you have some questions you'd like to submit them, please write them down and then hold them up in the air. We'll come collect them and we'll get them into the queue down here. My next question to our panel. If you had $50 million to invest today to benefit the Bay, what would your investment look like?
Much money.
We can give you a lot that would have been easier. I know. I'm digging for answers on this.
You had a zero.
I guess with that small amount of money, it's hard to do any big projects, but I would probably do whatever I could to do stormwater capture. So cisterns and rain barrels and more appropriate grading and all the little things, bioswales in some places that we can do to capture it. And I'm hoping the city of LA does at least a little of that with that kind of money in the next couple of months before we face El Nino. But I think with that kind of money, you'd only engage in pretty short-term fixes, but you could make some pretty progress with $50 million if it was used right.
maybe we can use a portion of that so that we can actually pass a real funding measure long-term to fund integrated water management in the region. Because honestly, $50 million is a down payment on everything that needs to be done. And we need to be bold enough to move forward with that sort of action. And it's just been talked since Prop O in 2004, and Santa Monica went solo in 2000.
For like $50 million on the table, and we go, whew, I can't do anything with that, because it sounds like a ton of money to a lot of folks out there. So, and I'm looking at the cards just paying down. Really, what ballpark is it going to cost to encourage the type of redo of our infrastructure to achieve some of the goals that we talked about, to diversify our water portfolio, to reduce those pollutants, and what should the private sector be doing?
So I mean, it depends how bold you want to be. So let's use an example, right? So right now you have Hyperion and the Joint Water Pollution Control Plant, and they're probably discharging, just a round off, 600 million gallons a day, right? And so you look at that and you go, okay, well, if we want to shift that so that 500 million gallons a day is recycled water supply, then we're talking about probably ballpark about a $1.5 billion investment. And so that's a lot of money, because it's not only treating the water to advanced treatment, but you got to figure out a place to put it. So that means, could we have to change adjudications in West Basin and Central Basin aquifers? There's a lot of stuff you would have to do to really be able to pull that off. But if we want to go bold, I mean, that's the sort of thing we need to do. You can start doing the same sort of exercise on stormwater. An example that I give all the time about a project that drives me nuts that hasn't happened is, you look at Sepulveda Basin, right? And I know it drains not into your bay, but into San Pedro Bay. But from the standpoint of, you have an entire flood control basin. The whole point is to prevent flooding within the San Fernando Valley. And so it captures all that runoff brilliantly. Army Corps and the city working together and the county. And then what do they do with it? They dump it into the LA River and bye-bye, and you're literally throwing money down the drain. From the standpoint of, putting together large projects to actually take that runoff and actually pump it to Hanson Dam so you can recharge it into the aquifer, that makes a hell of a lot more sense. And so that sort of mentality, we don't have the resources to do that right now, but each one of those projects, you start adding to it, and it costs a lot of money. The groundwater cleanup project that Nancy's group's leading at DWP, that could be $600 to $800 million, right? And that's going to restore a heck of a lot of groundwater within the San Fernando Valley. So you really see the potential's there, but these are not low-cost things. So if we look at things, a lot of numbers have gone around on how much it would cost to comply with Clean Water Act standards and how expensive it would be. If you look at it that way, it looks horrible. If you look at it from the standpoint of changing our water supply so it's truly sustainable and we can live within our means and be self-sufficient, it's not that expensive. And so that's the change we need to have.
I think I was going to comment on the groundwater cleanup, because that is an area where the numbers seem big. They are big, and that groundwater basin is really an incredible resource for the city of Los Angeles and really for the whole region, because being the largest consumer in the region, when we reduce our demands on imported water, it helps not only the whole region but the whole state. And where we're stuck in being able to tap that huge storage basin in the San Fernando Valley is that it's a Superfund site, and it will require $600, $800, maybe $1 billion to clean it up, and those are not costs the people of Los Angeles should bear. We didn't put the pollution there. It's a legacy of an industrial contamination. There's money in Prop 1 in the water bond that passed, about $800 million for groundwater cleanup across the state, and working with EPA to try to get those people who are responsible for the pollution to pay for the cleanup. But we also can't wait, and we've been waiting 30 years since since it was listed on the federal superfund. So we have to go ahead and build, we have plans to build a treatment plant. It's in the environmental review stage right now. Centralized treatment plant to clean up the groundwater basin, which will free it up to do more stormwater capture, to work with the infrastructure that we have in the valley, the wastewater treatment infrastructure, which can highly treat that water and solve some of those problems, the storage problem, where do you put it when you clean it up, and at least in part to keep water that otherwise would be discharged to the ocean in Los Angeles for the use of everybody who lives in LA.
All right. 30 seconds to any or each of one of you for your any closing thoughts. Go on. All right, I'm with you. Can I have a round of applause, please?